I didn't think much of the rules when I first saw them. That was probably my first mistake. I still work here in a way. That is the part people usually don't understand when I try to tell them what happened. They think I mean I quit, but I still think about the place. Or that I'm stuck with the memory of it. Or that I'm being dramatic because I spent too much time alone in bad weather. I wish that was all it was. The station is still there, about 40 miles inside the northern edge of Wrangell Country, where the park roads turn into service trails and the service trails turn into snowmobile tracks. It is not the kind of place tourists visit. Most maps don't label it with anything more than a small black square and a number. The official name is Teslin Ridge Automated Weather Observation Station, but nobody calls it that. People in the office called it T9. That made it sound smaller than it was. Cleaner. Like a little metal box with an antenna. And technically, most of the weather work was automated. The sensors did what sensors do. Wind speed, pressure, precipitation, temperature, visibility, snow depth, all of it feeding back to Anchorage through a satellite uplink whenever the sky allowed it. But automated does not mean unattended. That was the first thing my uncle said when he got me the job. Machines don't get lonely, he told me. But they do get stupid. My uncle's name was Ray. He was not really my uncle by blood. He was my mother's cousin, the kind of man who had always been around when I was growing up, and because he fixed our sink once and sent me $20 every birthday until I was 17, everyone called him Uncle Ray. Ray had worked for the Park Service for almost 30 years. Not all in one job. Seasonal maintenance, fire watch, trail crew, radio operator, emergency shelter inspection. If something was remote, low-paying, uncomfortable, and required a person who did not ask too many questions, Ray had probably done it. He was the one who told me about T9. At the time I was 29, unemployed, and living in my truck behind a friend's auto shop in Fairbanks. I had left a warehouse job after a supervisor accused me of stealing fuel cards. I hadn't stolen anything, but once a place decides you are the kind of person who might, you can feel it in every conversation. I walked out on a Tuesday afternoon with half a paycheck and no plan. Ray found me 2 weeks later, eating microwave burritos in the back office of the shop while my friend pretended not to notice how bad things had gotten. He didn't give me a speech. Ray was not a speech man. He just stood in the doorway, looked at the cot I had folded against the wall, and said, "You still know how to use a radio?" I told him yes. "You still sober?" I told him yes, because it had been 9 months by then, and I was proud of it, even if most days nobody asked. "You mind cold?" "I grew up here." "That's not what I asked." I said I didn't mind it. He nodded like that was enough. 3 days later, I was signing temporary winter paperwork in a small federal office that smelled like wet boots and copier heat. The job title was Weather Station Technician, seasonal. The pay was not good, but it was steady. Housing was included, which mattered more than the pay. I would work 8 weeks at T9, alone most of the time, checking equipment, clearing rime ice from sensors, logging manual readings, keeping the generator serviced, and reporting conditions during storm events. The office manager, a tired woman named Helen, explained it like she was reading from a page she had read too many times. "You'll have satellite text when weather permits. Radio check twice a day. Emergency beacon. Generator shed. Pantry stock for 60 days. Don't take risks. Don't be a hero. Document everything." I asked why the job was open in the middle of the season. Helen clicked her pen 3 times before answering. "Last tech requested transfer." "Why?" "Isolation." That was all she said. I looked at Ray. Ray was looking out the window at the parking lot. I should have asked more. I know that now. I should have asked why a man who spent 6 winters at isolated stations suddenly couldn't handle isolation. I should have asked why Ray had come to me instead of recommending someone already in the system. I should have asked why Helen slid the contract toward me but did not look at my hand when I signed it. But I needed a place to sleep. I needed money. I needed something that sounded like a clean start. So I signed. T9 was reached by helicopter on clear days and by snow machine on bad ones. The day Ray took me in, the sky was low and gray, but not angry yet. We loaded supplies into a white Park Service snowcat that moved like a refrigerator on treads. It took most of the day to get there. We followed the maintenance road for the first 20 miles, then a marked route across country that was only visible because of orange fiberglass poles stuck in the snow. Ray drove. I rode beside him and tried not to seem nervous. There are quiet places, and then there are places that make you feel like sound has never belonged there. The farther we went, the more the world narrowed to white ground, black spruce, and the low brown line of the ridge. Every few miles, Ray would slow down and check the GPS against the poles. The wind pushed loose snow sideways across the windshield. The heater blew dust and warm plastic smell. Ray did not talk much. That made every sentence he did say feel important. "Don't trust distance out here," he said after an hour. "Things look close when they're not." Later he said, "Don't leave tools outside. Metal goes missing." I asked if people came through. "Not people." I laughed a little, because I thought he meant animals. He didn't laugh back. T9 appeared near dusk, though dusk in that part of winter was more of a long dimming than an event. The station sat in a shallow basin below Teslin Ridge, surrounded by broken spruce and rock. There were 3 structures. The main cabin was a square, ugly thing built from dark logs and metal siding, with a green roof and 1 narrow window facing south. A short antenna mast stood beside it. Behind the cabin was the generator shed, half buried in drifted snow. 50 yards north stood the instrument field, a fenced rectangle with sensor poles, a Stevenson screen, a snowboard, precipitation gauge, and a taller tower with spinning cups that turned slowly in the wind. Farther south, maybe a quarter-mile away, there was another shape. A low building, collapsed on one side, almost hidden by snow and distance. I pointed at it. "What's that?" Ray didn't look. "Old station." "Why'd they move it?" "Foundation shifted." I waited for more. None came. The main cabin looked better inside than out. Not good, exactly, but practical. There was a work desk with 2 monitors, a radio console, a wall clock, a narrow cot, a little kitchen, a wood stove nobody used anymore because the diesel heater was safer, and shelves packed with manuals, batteries, canned food, and binders. The whole place smelled like dust, fuel, and old coffee. Everything hummed. That is what I remember most from the first hour. The hum. The heater. The refrigerator. The battery inverter. The radio speaker with its soft static. The monitors. The building sounded alive in a boring way. Ray showed me the routines. Manual observations at the top of every hour during active weather. Generator check at 6 in the morning and 6 at night. Clear snow from the vents. Do not let ice build on the wind sensors. Record any wildlife. Log all radio contact. Keep the entryway shoveled. If the satellite uplink drops, do not keep resetting it. Wait 10 minutes, then try once. There was a binder for everything. Equipment manual. Safety procedure. Storm protocol. Fuel log. Snowmobile maintenance. Incident reports. Old weather records. A station diary with lined pages and different handwriting from different seasons. I noticed one binder on the bottom shelf with no label. It was thinner than the rest and held closed with a gray rubber band. What's that one? Ray took longer than he needed to answer. Local notes. Like tips? Something like that. He pulled it out and set it on the desk, but he didn't open it. Then he took off his gloves and rubbed his hands together. His fingers were stiff and red around the nails. Ray had always looked older than his age, but there in the station light, he looked used up. His beard was more white than gray. The skin under his eyes hung loose. Read that after I leave, he said. That made me smile, because it felt like a joke. He still didn't smile. Why after? Because if you read it while I'm here, you'll ask me questions. And you won't answer? I can't answer most of them. That was the first time I felt something inside me go still. Not fear exactly. More like the body recognizing a shape before the mind does. I looked at the binder again. Ray. He held up one hand. Listen to me. Most shifts here are boring. You'll drink bad coffee. You'll shovel. You'll curse the generator. You'll get tired of your own breathing. And maybe nothing else happens. Maybe the last guy was cracked from being alone too long. Maybe the old stories are old stories. What old stories? He ignored that. But if something happens, don't improvise. Don't try to understand it while it's happening. Just follow the rules. He said rules like he hated the word. I looked toward the narrow window. Outside, the instrument tower blinked with a small red light. Are these official rules? No. Then whose are they? Ray put his gloves back on. Everybody's by now. The radio crackled once. Both of us looked at it. It was just static. Ray zipped his coat. I'm leaving before the snow gets worse. You're not staying tonight? No. Something about how fast he said it made my stomach tighten. He gave me a tour of the emergency supplies. He made me repeat the radio frequencies. He showed me where the spare batteries were stored and where to find the shotgun, though he said I wouldn't need it. Then he stood by the door with his hand on the latch. For 1 second he looked like he wanted to say something kind. Instead he said, "When you get scared, don't call your mother." That hit me harder than anything else. My mother's dead, I said. I know. Ray opened the door and snow blew in around his boots. I followed him onto the little porch. The sky had turned dark blue. The snowcat sat with its lights on, engine rumbling. Its exhaust drifted low and white. Ray climbed in, then leaned out. One more thing. I stepped closer. If you hear me on the radio after tonight, it isn't me. Then he shut the door. I stood there while the snowcat backed around, its lights washing over the instrument field, the generator shed, the old station in the distance. Then it crawled away between the orange poles, getting smaller until the dark and snow took it. After that, the whole place seemed to listen. I went inside and locked the door. For a while I kept busy. That is what people do when they are afraid of feeling foolish. I unpacked my duffel. I put groceries away even though the shelves were already stocked. I checked the heater. I made coffee so strong it tasted burned. I wrote my name in the duty log. December 3rd. Arrived T9 at 1740. Outgoing staff, R. Keller. Weather, light snow, wind and any 18 miles per hour, pressure falling. No issues. I paused before writing no issues. Then I wrote it anyway. The unlabeled binder sat on the desk where Ray had left it. I managed not to open it for 20 minutes. Then the wind hit the cabin hard enough to make the wall creak, and I decided waiting was stupid. The binder was old. The plastic cover had gone cloudy, and the rubber band left a pale stripe across it. Inside were loose pages, station maps, handwritten notes, photocopied logs, and a single sheet of yellow paper at the front. The paper had been folded in half so many times the crease was almost torn. At the top, someone had written, "Storm Rules T9. Read before first whiteout. Do not remove from cabin." Below that were 7 rules. The handwriting was neat, all capital letters, like someone had written slowly to make sure there could be no misunderstanding. 1. During an active storm, make the hourly report even if the instruments give readings that are impossible. Do not leave a blank space. 2. If the radio uses your full name, unplug the handset before it finishes speaking. Do not answer in any form. 3. If camera 3 shows lights on in the Old South Station, turn the monitor off for 10 minutes. Do not look at the building directly. 4. If you hear knocking from beneath the floor, write the number of knocks in the log. Stop counting at 3. 5. If the outside thermometer displays your age, do not open an exterior door until it changes. 6. If the red lamp is on, stay at your post. 7. At 3:12 a.m., if the wind stops completely, speak only current weather data until sound returns. That was all. No explanations. No warnings about penalties. No little note saying some of this might sound strange but take it seriously. Just 7 rules, written like instructions for changing a fuse. I read them twice. Then I said out loud, "Nope." The cabin did not answer. I wanted to laugh. I almost did. It felt like something seasonal workers would make to scare the new guy. A remote station prank. Leave a creepy note. Let the new tech spend a few nights jumping at static. The fact that Ray had played it so straight only made it better. Ray liked dry humor. Maybe age had made his delivery too good. I told myself that. Then I read Rule 5 again. If the outside thermometer displays your age, do not open an exterior door until it changes. That one bothered me more than the others. I was 29. It was Alaska in December. The thermometer might display 29 degrees if the weather shifted. It wasn't impossible. But the note said your age, not the temperature of your age. It used the word displays like the number had meaning. I closed the binder. Then I opened it again. Behind the rule sheet were old entries. Most were short. January 14th, 2011. Camera 3 light event 244. Monitor covered. No direct observation. February 2nd, 2013. Unidentified radio traffic using employee surname only. No response. December 19th, 2014. Floor knocks at 110, 133, 204. Counted 3 only. No further issue. March 7th, 2016. Red lamp observed during storm. Remained at post until 5:18. The more I read, the less it felt like a joke. There were different handwritings across different years, and all of them treated the rules the same way. Flat. Bored, almost. Like a plumbing problem. There were no dramatic notes. No descriptions of monsters. No panicked writing. That made it worse. Then I found a page from the previous season. February 26th. Whiteout conditions. Barometer faulting low. Camera 3 active. Heard RK calling outside north wall at 23:20. Did not respond. Radio later used first and last name. Disconnected handset. 3:12 calm lasted 7 minutes. Reported wind calm, visibility 0, temp -31, pressure 28.01. Voice repeated pressure wrong twice. Did not correct. Request transfer upon relief. The initials at the bottom were M. Harlan. The last tech. I sat back from the desk and listened to the heater hum. After a minute, I got up and checked the door lock. Then I checked the window. Then, because I felt stupid, I checked the door lock again. The first night was quiet. Not peaceful. Quiet. There is a difference. I made my hourly observations, though no active storm had been declared yet. I learned the monitors. Camera 1 pointed at the instrument field. Camera 2 showed the generator shed and fuel tank. Camera 3 faced south, toward the old station. Camera 4 watched the porch and the first stretch of the route out. The cameras were black and white at night. Snow showed up bright. Spruce trees were dark smudges. The old station on camera 3 was barely visible, just a low broken line beyond drifting static. I did not look out the south window after reading the rule. Not directly. I told myself the camera was enough. By midnight, the wind had picked up. The cabin walls made small ticking sounds as cold worked through the seams. I heated soup, ate it from the pot, and filled out the log with careful handwriting. Midnight. Temp -18 F. Wind NNE 24 gusting 31. Pressure 29.11, falling. Visibility 2 miles, snow. At 1, I did it again. At 2 again. By 3, I was fighting sleep. There is a specific kind of tired that comes from sitting under fluorescent light in the middle of nowhere. Your body knows it should be asleep, but the machines tell it to keep watching. I walked laps around the cabin. I washed the same mug twice. I read the first aid manual. I checked the generator even though it wasn't time. At 3:12 I looked at the clock. Nothing happened. The wind did not stop. The radio did not speak. No knocking came from the floor. The outside thermometer read -19, which was not my age unless something had gone very wrong in my personal history. I laughed then quietly. Good, I said. The words sounded too loud in the cabin. I slept at dawn for 3 hours and woke when the radio clicked on with Helen's voice. T9, this is Central. Morning check. I rolled off the cot, hit my knee on the chair, and grabbed the handset. Central, T9. Reading you? How's the honeymoon? I glanced around the cabin. Cold and ugly. Sounds normal. Ray get you settled? Yeah. A brief pause. Good. I thought about mentioning the binder. The rules. Ray's warning. Instead I said, any storm advisories? System building west. You'll probably get it tomorrow night or early Friday. We'll send text when models settle. Copy. Remember, don't overwork in the cold. Copy. The radio clicked off. I waited for some sign that she was hiding something. There was none. The second day was work. Real work helps. It keeps the mind from making shapes. I shoveled the entry path, cleared snow from the generator shed, checked fuel, cleaned ice off a sensor shield, and replaced the cracked cable tie on the fence. The cold was clean and sharp. My breath froze in my beard. The sky stayed low but bright. I could see the old station from outside if I turned south, but I made a point not to stare. It looked like nothing. Just a ruined service building with one side sagging inward. Snow had climbed halfway up the walls. The roof was bent, and one corner had collapsed. No tracks led to it. No smoke. No lights. That made Rule 3 seem ridiculous. At noon, I sent a routine text through the satellite terminal. T9 normal. Snow showers. Equipment okay. A reply came 30 minutes later. Received. Storm watch likely 24 hours. I spent the afternoon reading old logs, but not the unlabeled binder. Regular logs. Wind events. Maintenance problems. A fox den noted in 2018. Bear damage in summer 2020. Satellite outages. Generator repairs. A long complaint from someone named Luis about the coffee supply. All normal. That night, I made pasta and listened to the radio scan. Mostly silence. Once I heard two maintenance workers talking somewhere far off, their voices flattened by distance. Another time I caught part of a weather broadcast. No ghost voices. No full name. No knocks. The first incident happened at 11:08 p.m. I was entering a manual observation into the station computer when the printer woke up. It was an old thermal printer connected to the data system, used for hard copies during storm events and automatic alerts. It had not printed since I arrived. The sound made me jump because it was so ordinary and sudden. A little whir. A soft mechanical chatter. A strip of paper curled out. I tore it off. It read, "Order confirmed. 1 coffee black. 1 toast dry. Table 6. I stared at it. For a few seconds, I honestly thought I had found the wrong machine. Like there was a restaurant printer tucked under the desk and somebody had wired it to the wrong network. It was so stupid, so out of place, that my brain tried to solve it as an office error before it let fear into the room. The station had no table 6. It had no tables except the desk and a small folding one by the cot. It did have coffee and bread. I checked the computer screen. No alert. No print command. No connection to anything except the weather system and satellite terminal. I checked the printer queue. Empty. I checked under the desk, as if a hidden cable would explain it. Nothing. Then the printer clicked again. Another strip came out. Order confirmed. 1 coffee black. 1 toast dry. Table 6. Server, Elias Ward. My full name is Elias Daniel Ward. But most people call me Eli. I had not typed my full name into the station computer. My paperwork used it, sure, but the station login was just UID. The duty log said E. Ward. My duffel tag said Eli because my mother wrote it there years earlier in permanent marker. I held the paper in my hand until the heat from the printer faded out of it. Then I laughed again, but it came out wrong. I told myself it was just a glitch. I actually said that. Out loud. Like narrating made it less frightening. I folded the strips and put them in the regular log between pages. I did not put them in the unlabeled binder. I don't know why. Maybe because that would have made it real. Maybe because the rules hadn't said anything about orders or printers or table 6. There was no rule for that, so I treated it like it didn't count. At midnight the wind rose. Central sent the storm watch at 0:17. Winter storm warning active 0100 to 1600. Manual hourly reports required. I brewed more coffee. I sharpened a pencil. I laid out the log sheets. I told myself I was prepared. At 1 o'clock, the first official storm report looked normal. Temp -21. Wind any 32 gusting 40. Pressure 28.94. Visibility half a mile. Snow heavy. At 2 o'clock, pressure had fallen more. Still normal. At 3 o'clock, the wind was screaming against the cabin. The whole building trembled in gusts. Snow packed against the porch door. Camera 1 was mostly white. Camera 2 showed the generator shed as a dark block in flowing static. Camera 3 showed nothing but storm. I was filling in the report when the radio clicked. Not the normal static. This was a clean click, like someone pressing a transmit button close by. I looked at the clock. 3:11. I waited. Static breathed through the speaker. Then a voice said, T9. It was a man's voice. Low. Tired. I didn't recognize it. I reached for the handset, then stopped. The rule came back to me before I moved. If the radio uses your full name, unplug the handset before it finishes speaking. Do not answer in any form. The voice had not used my name. It had only said T9. I picked up the handset. Central, this is T9. Say again. No answer. I waited. The static grew thinner. Then the voice said, Elias. I froze. Not full name. Just first. My hand tightened on the handset. Elias. It sounded closer the second time. I lowered the handset but did not hang it up. The voice continued. Elias Daniel. I yanked the cord. The plug came out of the console with a plastic snap. The speaker went dead. Not quiet. Dead. I stood there holding the handset and cord in my hand like I had ripped out a vein. The clock changed to 3:12. Outside, the wind stopped. I do not mean it faded. I mean it stopped between 1 second and the next. The cabin had been shaking. Snow had been hissing against the walls. The antenna had been whining. Then all of it cut off. The silence was so sudden that my ears hurt. I could hear the refrigerator. I could hear the blood in my neck. I could hear something settle beneath the floor. Rule 7. At 3:12 a.m., if the wind stops completely, speak only current weather data until sound returns. I stood behind the desk and looked at the instruments. Wind speed 0 miles per hour. Visibility 0.0. Temperature -22 F. Pressure 28.73. I said, wind calm. Visibility 0. Temperature -22 Fahrenheit. Pressure 28.73. My voice sounded small and dry. Nothing happened. I said it again. Wind calm. Visibility 0. Temperature -22 Fahrenheit. Pressure 28.73. From beneath the floor, something knocked once. It was not loud. That made it worse. It sounded exactly like knuckles on wood, from below me. Rule 4. If you hear knocking from beneath the floor, write the number of knocks in the log. Stop counting at 3. I grabbed the pencil. Knock. I wrote 2 knocks. I kept speaking. Wind calm. Visibility 0. Temperature -22 Fahrenheit. Pressure 28.73. Knock. I wrote 3 knocks. Another knock came after that. I did not write it. It knocked again. And again. Slowly. Patiently. Like someone waiting for me to admit they were there. I kept my eyes on the instruments. Wind calm. Visibility 0. Temperature -22 Fahrenheit. Pressure 28.73. The floor knocked under my boots. Once. Twice. 3 times. Then more. I stopped counting. After a while, another voice spoke from under the floor. It was my mother's voice. Not loud. Not clear at first. Just enough. Eli? I kept looking at the pressure reading. Wind calm. Visibility 0. Temperature -22 Fahrenheit. Pressure 28.73. Eli, honey? My mouth went dry. My mother had been dead for 4 years. Lung infection after chemo. She died in a hospital bed in Fairbanks while snow tapped against the window, and I sat in the hallway because I couldn't stand the sound she made when she breathed. I had never told Ray about that hallway. Nobody liked talking about it. Eli, the floor said. I pressed the pencil so hard against the paper the point broke. The voice changed. Not into a monster voice. not into something dramatic. It changed into my own voice. Wind calm, it said from beneath me. Visibility 0. Temperature negative 22 Fahrenheit. Pressure 28.73. It copied my rhythm exactly. I kept speaking. I do not know how long that went on. The clock said 7 minutes later when the wind came back. It hit the cabin all at once, a wall of sound slamming into the south side hard enough to rattle the dishes. I flinched and almost fell into the chair. The radio was still unplugged. The floor was quiet. I stood there shaking, with a broken pencil in my hand and a handset cord lying at my feet. At 4 o'clock, I made the hourly report. I filled every blank. Rule 1. When I got to notes, I wrote 312 wind sensor calm for approximately 7 minutes. Cabin audio anomaly. Floor knocking. Counted 3. Then I stared at the words cabin audio anomaly until they looked like something a sane person might write. In the morning, Central called for check-in. I had plugged the radio back in after sunrise, though my hands shook doing it. Helen was not on duty. A man named Cooper answered. He sounded young, bored, and half asleep. T9 Central. You good out there? I looked at the log. No equipment damage, I said. Rough night? Storm got weird. Storms do that. I wanted to tell him everything. Instead, I asked, do you have any record of radio traffic around 311? Stand by. I listened to faint typing. Negative. Nothing from you after 2 until 4. You missed the scheduled radio check? Manual report went through. Yeah, data came in. Radio didn't. I had static. Storm interference probably. That would have made sense, except the voice had used my name. I didn't mention it. I asked about the printer. What printer? The thermal printer on the station computer. It printed something strange. What kind of strange? I looked at the 2 order slips on the desk. Maybe an old test command. Could be. Those systems are ancient. Send a photo when satellite clears. I said I would. I didn't. After the call, I went through the regular log to find the order slips. They were gone. I checked between every page. I checked under the desk, behind the computer, in the trash, under the chair. Nothing. The log still had a slight bend where I had tucked them, but the paper was missing. That was the first time I thought seriously about leaving. Not because of the voice. Not even because of my mother. Because of the missing slips. A voice can be blamed on sleep, stress, static, bad memory, grief. Knocking can be pipes, animals, wood shifting in cold. But paper is paper. It either exists, or it does not. And someone, or something, had taken it. I packed my duffel halfway before I stopped. There was nowhere to go. The storm was still active. Visibility was poor. The route markers would be buried. The snowmobile stayed in a small lean-to beside the generator shed, but Ray had made it clear it was for emergency use only. An emergency in that country did not mean scared. It meant fire, injury, carbon monoxide, generator failure. It meant something that made staying more dangerous than leaving. I stood over my duffel with socks and spare thermals in my hands. Then the heater kicked harder, filling the cabin with that dry diesel warmth. The station hummed. A report printed from the weather system. A real one this time. I put my clothes back. That was the pattern for the next 2 days. Work, fear, work, doubt. I made reports. I slept in short pieces. I shoveled when wind allowed it. I checked instruments. I cooked simple meals and forgot to eat half of them. I read the rules until I could recite them without looking. I kept the unlabeled binder open on the desk like a second person in the room. Nothing huge happened in daylight. That was important. Daylight, even the weak winter kind, made everything feel explainable. The old station was just a ruin. The floor was just floorboards. The radio was equipment. The storm was weather. Then night came, and all the simple things changed shape. On the fourth night, camera 3 showed a light. I noticed it at 12:38 because I was trying not to look. That sounds backwards, but anyone who has tried not to look at something on a monitor knows what I mean. Your eyes keep going back to it. Camera 3 was in the lower right corner of the screen. Mostly storm. Mostly black and white snow. The old South Station was a shadow inside a shadow. Then one window lit up. A small square of white. I stopped breathing for a second. Rule 3. If camera 3 shows lights on in the old South Station, turn the monitor off for 10 minutes. Do not look at the building directly. I reached for the monitor button. Before I pressed it, a figure crossed in front of the lit window. Not clearly. Not enough for details. Just a darker movement against the light. My hand hovered. I wanted to see it again. That is the part one hate admitting. I wanted proof. I wanted enough proof that I could stop feeling crazy. One more second, I thought. One more second and I'll know if I saw a person or just snow. The rule said do not look at the building directly. It did not say I couldn't look at the camera for another second. That was how my mind tried to get around it. Then the figure stopped in the window and lifted one hand. The hand was pressed against the glass from the inside. It looked like it had 5 fingers. It also looked too large for the window. I turned off the monitor. The cabin went darker without the screen. The radio console lights glowed green. The clock ticked. Wind dragged snow along the wall. I set a timer on my watch for 10 minutes. At minute 2, something outside the south wall scraped. Slow and light. Like a chair being pulled across a wooden floor. Except there was no wooden floor outside the south wall. Just snow. I sat at the desk with both hands flat on the surface and looked at the black monitor. At minute 4, the scraper stopped. At minute 5, the cabin phone rang. I had not noticed the phone before because it looked dead. An old wired handset mounted near the radio, probably tied into some internal system that no longer worked. It rang with a dull mechanical bell. Once. Twice. 3 times. Then it stopped. I did not answer. There was no rule about the phone. But by then, I had learned that was not permission. At minute 9, someone knocked on the south window. The window was narrow and set high in the wall, above the little kitchen counter. I had covered it after the first storm with a dish towel and 2 strips of duct tape because I didn't like feeling watched while making coffee. The knock came against the glass behind the towel. One soft tap. Then a pause. Then another. I looked at my watch. 9 minutes and 17 seconds. The towel moved inward slightly, like something on the other side had pressed against the glass. I looked away. At 10 minutes, my watch beeped. I waited 1 more full minute. Then I turned the monitor on. Camera 3 showed the old station dark. No lit window. No figure. No hand. I did not look out the south window. In the log I wrote 038 Camera 3 light event at old station. Monitor off 11 minutes. No direct observation. My handwriting looked almost calm. The next morning, the storm lifted enough for blue sky to show in torn strips over the ridge. Everything outside sparkled in that hard, frozen way that looks beautiful if you are behind glass and hostile if you are not. I had to go out. The instruments needed clearing. The precipitation gauge had rhymed over. Snow had drifted against the generator's shed door. Fuel needed checking. I waited until full light, dressed in layers, clipped the radio to my coat, and stood in the entryway with my hand on the door latch. The outside thermometer by the door read -9. Not my age. I opened the door. Cold took the moisture out of my nose. The snow had hardened on top, and my boots broke through with a dry crusting sound. I shoveled first. That made me feel normal. Then I checked the generator, wrote down fuel levels, and walked to the instrument field with a small brush and tool bag. The world was bright and quiet. I tried not to look south. I cleaned the sensors. The wind cups spun above me, clicking. Ice had built up on the tower bolts. The snow board needed a new measurement. All simple tasks. Then I saw footprints. Not mine. They crossed the instrument field from north to south in a straight line, passing between the snow gauge and the tower. Bare footprints. Human. Deep enough to show toes. I stood there with the brush in one hand. The fence gate was still wired shut from the outside with the twist I had made that morning. The snow inside the fence had been smooth when I arrived. The prints started at the north fence, though there was no disturbance under the fence or over it. They ended at the south fence the same way. Bare feet, in weather that would freeze skin in minutes. I counted them without meaning to. 16. Each one about the size of mine. In the middle of the line, one footprint was turned sideways, as if the person had stopped and faced the cabin. I backed away slowly. The radio on my coat hissed. Then Ray's voice said, "Don't step in them." My hand flew to the radio but stopped before pressing anything. Ray had said if I heard him on the radio after that night, it wasn't him. The voice came again. "Eli. Don't step in them." It sounded exactly like Ray. Not close exactly, but accurate. His tired gravel. His clipped way of saying my name. The same impatience. I unplugged nothing because it was the portable radio. I fumbled with the power knob and shut it off. The silence afterward felt enormous. I looked down. My right boot was inches from the nearest footprint. For a moment, I imagined stepping into it. I don't know why. Something about the print looked fitted. That is the only word I have. Like it was waiting for my foot, even though it was bare and I was wearing a boot. I backed out of the instrument field, closed the gate, and returned to the cabin without finishing the snowboard measurement. Inside, I set the portable radio on the desk and stared at it. It was off. Then it clicked. Ray's voice came through anyway, quiet under static. "You did good." I took the battery out. The voice stopped. At noon I called Central. Helen answered. I had never been so glad to hear an ordinary voice. "T9, go ahead. There are footprints in the instrument field." "What kind?" "Human." A pause. "Are you sure?" "Barefoot. Inside the fence." Another pause. "Any sign of entry?" "No. Could be melt patterns. Ice falling from the tower. They have toes." I heard her breathing over the line. "Eli, listen carefully. Do you feel in immediate danger?" I almost said yes. But the word stuck. Because immediate meant something specific. There was nothing breaking down the door. Nothing bleeding. Nothing burning. No one standing outside. "I don't know," I said. Helen was quiet for too long. Then she said, "Weather window is poor for the next 48. Ray can't get out there until Saturday at earliest." "Ray." I looked at the dead portable radio with the battery beside it. "Is Ray in town?" "Yes." "Can you put him on?" "He's not in the office." "Can you call him?" Another pause. Eli, what's going on? I looked at the unlabeled binder. I wanted to say, you know what's going on. But I didn't know that she did. Maybe she only knew the shape of it. Maybe that was how this place worked. Everybody knew enough to warn the next person but not enough to explain. Maybe explanation was a line people learn not to cross. I'm following the local notes, I said. The radio hissed softly. Helen answered in a lower voice. Good. That was all. She did not ask which notes. She did not ask what rules. She just said good. The false normal after that call was worse than the incidents. I ate lunch. I filed a maintenance note about the precipitation gauge. I completed the noon observation using estimated snowboard data because I did not want to go back outside. I listened to Central discuss fuel shipments with another station, as if I had not just reported bare footprints inside a locked fence in a winter storm. Nobody came. Nobody told me I was safe. Nobody told me to leave. The world kept operating around the impossible. That does something to you. It teaches you that fear does not cancel responsibility. The report still has to be filed. The generator still needs checking. The dishes still stink if you leave them. Your body still gets hungry. Socks still need drying. Batteries still need charging. You can be afraid of a thing under the floor and still need to find the can opener. By the end of the first week, I had become efficient in a way that scares me now. I knew which chair creaks were normal. I knew how long the generator took to settle after a gust. I knew that the floor knocks usually came after 3 o'clock but before dawn. I knew not to look at camera 3 for more than a glance. I knew to keep a pencil sharpened and the rules visible. And I knew the station was learning me. That is the only way I can say it. At first, the strange things used what was obvious. My name from paperwork. Ray's voice from the person who brought me. My mother's voice from somewhere I still don't like thinking about. Then it got smaller. More specific. On December 11th, the printer woke up at 1822 and printed. Remember the blue mug. I was holding the blue mug. On December 12th, the old phone rang while I was brushing my teeth. I ignored it. After the third ring, my own voicemail greeting played from the receiver. Not a copied greeting from a phone company. My exact old greeting from a cell phone I had lost 2 years earlier. Hey, it's Eli. Leave a message. Then a beep. Then my mother said, You didn't come back in. I stood there with toothpaste foam in my mouth until it ran onto my shirt. On December 13th, I found my warehouse name badge inside the freezer, sealed in a thin layer of frost. I had thrown that badge in a dumpster after quitting. I know I had. I remembered watching it land on a black trash bag beside a cracked pallet. But there it was. E. Ward. Night loading. The photo was scratched over the eyes. I put it in the unlabeled binder. By then, I had started adding my own notes. Not because I wanted to help the next person. I still thought, in some stubborn corner of my mind, that there would not be a next person because someone would eventually admit what this place was. I wrote because writing made things stay in one shape. Words on paper did not shift as easily as memory. December 13th. Found old work badge in freezer. Impossible. Possible connection to personal history. No direct rule triggered. Kept item in local binder. Under that, after a minute I added, Do not keep personal items in open view. So I packed away my photos. There were only 2. One of my mother at Chena Hot Springs, smiling through steam. One of me and my brother at 13 and 9, standing beside a fish either of us had caught. I put them inside a sealed plastic bag at the bottom of my duffel. That night, the floor knocked at 2:48. 1, 2, 3. Then my brother's voice. Eli? I did not answer. My brother was alive. That made it worse in a different way. Eli, I need a ride. That was something he used to say when we were younger, and he had gotten drunk somewhere. He had been clean longer than me now. Married. 2 kids. A normal life he protected carefully by not asking too many questions about mine. I need a ride, the floor said. I wrote 3 knocks. Come on, man. It's cold. I stared at the report sheet until the letters blurred. Please. The floorboards under the cot shifted with weight. Eli, I'm sorry. I put both hands over my ears, then took them away because I was afraid I might miss something I needed to hear. That is another thing the place did. It made even ignoring something feel dangerous. The next morning, I tried the satellite text. Check on Marcus Ward if possible. Wellness. Family. The message failed twice before sending. 4 hours later, Helen replied. Marcus Ward confirmed OK by phone 1405. Advise you asked? I read that message until my eyes hurt. Then another message arrived. Marcus Ward confirmed OK by phone 1405. Advise you asked? Same message. Then another. Marcus Ward confirmed OK by phone 1405. Advise you asked? 5 times total. The 6th message was different. Marcus Ward confirmed outside 1405. Advise you asked? I turned off the satellite terminal. That evening, Central called like nothing strange had happened. Cooper wanted a routine fuel status. I gave it to him. He asked if I had found the spare filters. I said yes. He told me Ray was planning a supply run if weather opened Monday. Then, casually, he said, You sound rough. I'm not sleeping much. Yeah. T9 does that. I waited. He cleared his throat. You seeing the station lights yet? I closed my eyes. Yes. Don't look at them. I know. I mean, really don't. Guys think the camera makes it safe. My hand tightened around the handset. What happens if you look? Cooper did not answer right away. When he did, his voice was quieter. You start seeing which windows are yours. Then he signed off. I wrote that down. You start seeing which windows are yours. I did not know what it meant yet. The misunderstanding came from Rule 6. If the red lamp is on, stay at your post. For almost 2 weeks, I thought that meant a small red warning lamp mounted above the radio console. It came on during certain alerts. It was part of the equipment. When the satellite link failed, it blinked red. When the generator battery dipped, it glowed steady. The first time it lit up during my shift, I stayed at the desk until it cleared, feeling foolish but obedient. That was my post, I thought. The desk. The radio. The chair. It made sense. In a storm, do not wander around. Stay at the operator's post. Keep making reports. Then, on December 15th, I found the old map. It was folded into the back of the unlabeled binder, tucked behind pages of handwritten notes. I had missed it because the paper was stiff and stuck to the cover. It showed the station grounds from before the move. Old South Weather Station. New cabin. Instrument field. Fuel cache. Emergency trail. Observation posts. There were 4 observation posts marked on the map. Little circles with letters. Post A was near the instrument field. Post B was by the generator shed. Post C was beside the ridge trail. Post D was not at the cabin. Post D was the Old South Station. There was also a note written in red pencil beside the circles. Lamps indicate active posts. Do not relocate during red. I stared at it for a long time. Then I looked at Rule 6 again. If the red lamp is on, stay at your post. Not at the desk. At your post. The cabin had a red lamp above the radio. The instrument tower had a red aircraft lamp. The generator shed had a red status light. And the Old South Station, I remembered suddenly, had one small fixture above the door. I had seen it in daylight and thought it was broken. I did not know which one counted. I also did not know who decided what my post was. That evening I called Helen. She answered after the second call. T9. I found the old map. Silence. The one with observation posts, I said. A little static moved through the line. Where did you find it? In the binder. Put it back. What does Rule 6 mean? She exhaled, but it was not annoyance. It was the sound of someone tired of a question they had hoped never to hear again. Eli. What does it mean? You're alone, right? I almost laughed. Yes. Then your post is where you are assigned during a red lamp. Assigned by who? By the lamp. That doesn't mean anything. I know. I stood up from the desk and turned in a small circle, looking at the cabin walls, the door, the monitor, the south window with its towel over it. What happens if the lamp is on somewhere else? Don't go to it. But the rule says stay at your post. It means don't leave the one you're at. You just said the lamp assigns it. Another long pause. Then Helen said, the rule was written before the cabin moved. That made no sense at first. Then it made too much. Before the cabin moved, the operator's post had been at the Old South Station. Rule 6 came from then. If the red lamp was on, the person stayed there. But now the station had moved. The rule had not. Why keep it? I asked. Because sometimes it still works. What does that mean? Helen's voice dropped so low I had to press the handset against my ear. It means if you see a red lamp outside, don't assume it's calling you. Sometimes it's marking where you already are. I didn't answer. Because while she was speaking, the red warning lamp above my radio came on. Not blinking. Steady. The console showed no alert. The satellite link was fine. Generator fine. Battery fine. No weather warning beyond the ongoing storm watch. Just the red lamp, glowing on the wall and filling the desk with a weak red shine. Helen must have heard my breathing change. Eli? It's on. Which one? The radio console. Stay there. How long? Until it goes off. And if something else happens? Stay there. The line crackled. Then a second voice joined the call. My voice. It said, Helen, he's not at the desk. I dropped the handset. It swung by its cord, knocking against the cabinet. Helen's voice came through tiny and far away. Eli? Eli, pick up. Pick up the handset. My own voice said. He went outside. The red lamp hummed. I stood beside the desk, not touching the phone. From the south wall came a soft scrape. Then another. The old phone rang once. The monitor flickered. Camera 3 came alive by itself, filling the screen. The Old South Station was visible through heavy snow. The light above its door was red. And in that red glow, someone stood facing the building. At first I thought it was a person wearing a heavy coat. Then I saw the duffel slung over one shoulder. My duffel. The figure turned. It was me. Not a perfect double. The camera was grainy, and snow crossed the image. But I knew the posture. I knew the coat. I knew the way my left shoulder sat lower because of an old injury from the warehouse. It was standing outside the old station with my duffel, looking toward the camera. The handset on the cord swung gently. Helen kept saying my name. On the screen, the other me raised one hand. Not waving. Pointing. At the door of the old station. The red lamp above my desk buzzed louder. I sat down in the chair. That felt important. Like making contact with the desk anchored me. I picked up the handset without standing. I'm here, I said. Helen breathed out hard. Do not describe what you see. I'm at the desk. Good. Stay there. My duffel is outside. No, it isn't. I looked toward the cot. My duffel was still there, half open, with a sock hanging out. On camera 3, the other me held up the same sock. Then it smiled. I turned the monitor off. Not because Rule 3 had triggered. The old station light was red, not a window light. I turned it off because I couldn't look anymore. The red lamp above the radio stayed on for 43 minutes. During that time, the floor knocked. The printer spat blank paper. The old phone rang. Something walked around the cabin in circles, slow and heavy, pressing snow down outside the walls. My portable radio, still without its battery, whispered from the shelf in Ray's voice. Eli, move! I did not move. At one point, my chair slid backward about an inch, though I was sitting in it. I dug my boots into the floor and held the desk with both hands. Helen stayed on the line for the first 20 minutes. She did not comfort me. She did not explain. She just made me give weather readings every few minutes. Temperature: -24. Pressure: 28.62. Wind: northeast 31. Visibility: quarter mile. Again. I think she knew that Rule 7 was not active, but weather data helped anyway. It gave my mouth something safe to do. Then the radio line cut out. For the rest of the time, I sat alone. When the red lamp finally went dark, every sound stopped with it. The cabin returned to its ordinary hum. I stayed at the desk until sunrise. After that night, I stopped thinking of the rules as warnings. They were more like terms. Not protection exactly. Not a shield. A way of remaining legible to the station, maybe. A way of telling it which shape I still agreed to be. I was the operator. I made reports. I logged knocks. I did not answer certain voices. I did not look at certain lights. I did not open the door for certain numbers. I spoke weather data when the wind stopped. As long as I did those things, the station mostly let me remain myself. Mostly. The next supply run came on December 18th. I had been awake for almost 30 hours when I heard the snowcat. At first I thought it was another trick because the sound came from the south. Then camera 4 showed headlights on the route, 2 yellow blurs moving between the marker poles. I watched them for 5 full minutes before believing. Ray arrived at 11:20 with another man I didn't know. They brought fuel filters, fresh produce, mail, and a replacement sensor part. Ray looked smaller than I remembered. Or maybe the cabin had gotten bigger around me. He came in, stamped snow off his boots, and looked at my face. You sleeping? No. He nodded like that answered a different question. The other man, a park mechanic named Dorsey, went to the generator shed. Ray stayed inside with me. I wanted to yell at him. I wanted to ask why he had put me here. I wanted to shove the binder into his chest and make him explain every page. Instead I said, You said maybe nothing would happen. Ray took off his hat. I hoped it wouldn't. That's not the same. No. He looked at the rule sheet on the desk. Then he looked at the south window, still covered by the towel. You saw the old lights? Yes. Radio? Yes. Floor? Yes. Red lamp? I didn't answer right away. His jaw tightened. Which one? Both. Ray shut his eyes. For a moment, he looked afraid in a way I had never seen. Not startled. Not worried. Afraid. What does that mean? I asked. It means you shouldn't stay the full 8 weeks. I laughed once. It sounded ugly. You think? I'll talk to Helen. You'll talk to Helen? Eli. You got me this job. I got you housing. Money. A way out. You got me trapped in a haunted weather station. He flinched at the word haunted, as if it was childish or dangerous. It's not haunted. Then what is it? He looked toward the floor. I don't know. That was worse than any answer he could have given. Ray sat at the desk and rubbed his face with both hands. The first station was built too close to the old survey line, he said. What old survey line? Doesn't matter. It matters to me. No, it doesn't. Details make people stupid out here. They make you think you found a reason, and once you think there's a reason, you think you can argue. Argue with what? He didn't answer. Outside, Dorsey shouted something about the generator, and Ray shouted back through the door that we'd be out in a minute. Then Ray turned back to me. Listen. The station gives you chances to say yes. That's the closest I can get. It can't make you walk out. It can't make you answer. It can't make you look. Not at first. At first? Ray's eyes moved to the binder. How many personal items has it shown you? I swallowed. My badge. My mother. My brother's voice. Any duplicates? My duffel on camera. He nodded slowly. It's making a place for you. In the old station? Maybe. What does that mean? It means stop giving it pieces. I didn't give it anything. You talked. I followed the rules. You still talked. You wrote. You remembered. It uses whatever comes loose. I thought of my mother's voice under the floor. My brother asking for a ride. The blue mug. The warehouse badge. Then the rules don't help. They help enough. I hated him for saying that. Dorsey came in after that, and Ray became normal. He checked the log. He inspected the radio console. He replaced the cracked seal around the door. He said the footprints in the instrument field were probably wind scour around old meld pockets. While Dorsey stood there, and I understood he was lying for both of us. Dorsey was cheerful in the way people get when they are leaving soon. He complained about the cold, drank half my coffee, and asked if I had seen any wolves. I said no. He told me the previous tech had gone squirrely, and started claiming the station was calling him from inside his own parka. Ray told him to shut up. Dorsey laughed, thinking it was a joke. Before they left, Ray pulled me aside near the entryway. Pack a go bag, he said quietly. Keep it by the door, but don't let it see you pack it. What does that mean? Pack when the monitors are off. I stared at him. You hear how insane that sounds? Yes. When are you getting me out? If weather holds, after Christmas. Maybe before. That's a week. I know. I can't do another week. Ray looked past me toward the desk. You can. Don't count days. Count reports. He pressed something into my hand. It was a small brass key on a red string. What's this? Old equipment locker. Where? Ray did not want to say it. I knew before he did. South Station, I said. If you never need it, don't use it. Why would I need it? Because Harlan left something there. The last tech? He said it was important. Then he wouldn't tell us what it was. He was gone before anyone could make him. You want me to go there? No. He closed my hand around the key. But if a rule changes, and I mean really changes, not a lamp, not a voice, if the written rule changes, then you go at first light, get what he left, and come back without looking in any window. I could barely speak. The written rules can change? Ray looked ashamed. They did once. When? He put his gloves on. When your mother was dying. I felt like the cabin tilted. What? He opened the door before I could say more. Cold air rushed in. Ray looked at me one last time. I'm sorry, Eli. Then he left. I watched the snowcat carry them away. This time, I did not stand outside. I watched on camera until the headlights disappeared. Then I turned off all the monitors and packed a go bag. Food. Socks. Matches. Water bottle. Batteries. Emergency blanket. Knife. Radio. The brass key. I put it by the door behind a stack of firewood. Then I sat on the cot and shook for a while. Ray had said when your mother was dying. I told myself he was confused. Maybe he meant when his mother died. Maybe he was talking about some other incident, and my brain had put the words together wrong. Stress does that. But I knew what I heard. That night, I searched the old logs. Not the binder at first. The regular station logs, year by year. My mother died in February 2022. I found that winter's log in a cardboard box under the shelf. The handwriting belonged to someone named P. Lask. Most of the entries were routine until February 17th. That date made me sit very still. My mother died on February 17th. The T9 log read: February 17th, 2022. Storm warning active. 312 calm lasted 11 minutes. Radio traffic used operator's full name. Disconnected. Floor knocks counted 3. Rules sheet found unfolded on desk though stored in binder. Rule 7 altered. Original returned by 6 o'clock. No direct contact. I turned the page too fast and tore the corner. There was no explanation. I opened the unlabeled binder and found the old rule sheet. The yellow one. It looked normal. 7 rules. But behind it were photocopies of older versions. Some faded. Some handwritten. Some typed. The rules had not always been the same. In 2009, Rule 7 read: At 3:12 a.m., if the wind stops completely, do not speak until sound returns. In 2014, at 3:12 a.m., if the wind stops completely, speak only your station number until sound returns. In 2018, at 3:12 a.m., if the wind stops completely, speak only current weather data until sound returns. On the 2022 photocopy, Rule 7 had been crossed out. Someone had written over it: At 3:12, if the wind stops, say her name and she will hear you. I dropped the page. The cabin hummed around me. My mother had died at 3:12 a.m. I never told Ray that. I never told anyone at the park service. I barely told anyone anything back then. But the hospital record would have it. My family knew. Maybe Ray knew through my mother's side. Maybe. I sat there with the photocopy on the floor and felt something inside me open that I had kept shut for 4 years. I had not been in the room when she died. I was in the hallway. The nurse came out and said, "You should come in now," in that soft voice nurses use when they already know. But I couldn't move right away. I sat with my hands between my knees, staring at the vending machine across from me. It had a blue light inside. One of the coils kept turning even though nothing was falling. By the time I stood up, my mother was gone. I had never forgiven myself for those last 30 seconds. At 3:12, if the wind stops, say her name and she will hear you. I understood then why Ray warned me not to call her. The station had known before I arrived. Or it had known once I did. Or maybe time did not matter to whatever listened through that place. At 2:55 that night, I put on my coat inside the cabin. Not to leave. Not yet. Because I no longer trusted myself. I clipped the go bag closed. I moved the chair away from the door so I would have to think before opening it. I unplugged the old phone from the wall, though I did not know if that mattered. I removed the paper from the printer. Then I sat at the desk and waited. At 3:05, the radio clicked. I had unplugged the handset. The speaker still spoke. My mother said, "Eli?" I closed my eyes. Her voice was clearer than it had been under the floor. Warm. Tired. A little breathy. Exactly how she sounded before the hospital got bad. "Eli, I'm not mad." I pressed my hands against the desk. The rule sheet lay in front of me. I forced myself to read the real rule. At 3:12 a.m., if the wind stops completely, speak only current weather data until sound returns. The radio said, "Honey, come sit with me." I looked at the clock. 3:07. The floor knocked once. I wrote one. The radio said, "You don't have to be scared of me." Knock. I wrote 2. "I know you were tired." Knock. I wrote 3. "I know you couldn't watch it." I stopped writing. The cabin lights dimmed. The monitor turned on by itself. Camera 3 showed the Old South Station. Every window was lit. Not just one. All of them. A warm light, impossible and steady, shining through glass that should have been broken or buried. Shadows moved behind the windows. Human shadows. Slow. I reached for the monitor button. Before I pressed it, I saw my mother in the doorway. Not clearly. The image was grainy. But I knew the shape of her. Small. Shoulders rounded. Hair tied back. One hand against the doorframe like she was waiting for help stepping down. I turned off the monitor. The wind slammed the cabin. 3:10. The radio whispered, "You can say my name." I stared at the instruments. Temperature -27. Pressure 28.48. Wind NE 36. Visibility 0.1. 3:11. The printer, empty of paper, clicked and scratched. The old phone rang even though I had unplugged it. The floor knocked under both feet. Then the wind stopped. 3:12. Silence. I opened my mouth. For a second, no sound came out. Then I said, "Wind calm. Visibility 0.1 miles. Temperature -27 Fahrenheit. Pressure 28.48. From the radio, my mother sighed. It was such a small sound. It broke something in me. I said the data again. Wind calm. Visibility 0.1 miles. Temperature -27 Fahrenheit. Pressure 28.48. The south window tapped. Once. The towel over it moved. My mother said, "Eli, please." Just once. I gripped the desk. Wind calm. Visibility 0.1 miles. Temperature -27 Fahrenheit. Pressure 28.48. The voice under the floor joined her. My brother. Ray. Helen. My own voice. A woman I did not know. A man crying softly. A child humming. All of them below me, around me, inside the walls, saying different versions of the same thing. Say her name. Say it. She'll hear you. Don't you want her to hear you? You left her alone. This is your chance. Just once. Just her name. I kept giving weather data. The pressure number changed while I was speaking. 28.47. I corrected it. Pressure 28.47. My mother laughed softly. Always so careful. Tears ran down my face. I could feel them cooling on my skin. I did not say her name. The calm lasted 14 minutes. When the wind came back, I was on the floor beside the chair, still repeating readings in a hoarse voice. I don't remember sliding down. My hands had cramped around the pencil. The log sheet was filled with weather data written over and over until the lines crossed. The rule sheet was still on the desk. But Rule 7 had changed. Not on a photocopy. On the yellow paper itself. The original writing was gone. In the same neat capital letters it now read. 7. At 3:12 a.m., if the wind stops completely, open the south door before speaking. I stared at it until sunrise. Then I took Ray's key and went to the old station. I know how that sounds. I know every sensible thought says I should have stayed in the cabin. But Ray had told me, if the written rule changes, go at first light, get what Harlan left, and come back without looking in any window. It was the first clear morning in days. The sky was pale. The cold was deep. Snow squeaked under my boots. I carried the go bag, the portable radio, a flashlight, and the brass key. I left the main cabin door unlocked because I had a fear that if I locked it, I would come back and find myself inside already. The old station looked smaller as I approached. That was not comforting. Distance out there lies. Ray had said that on the first day. From the cabin, the old station looked a quarter mile away. Walking to it felt much longer. The snow was thigh-deep in places, wind-packed in others. My breath came hard inside the face covering. The instrument tower clicked behind me until the wind shifted and I couldn't hear it anymore. I kept my eyes down. Do not look in any window. The old station sat crooked on a foundation of cracked concrete piers. Snow had drifted against the north wall almost to the roofline. The south side was exposed and damaged, siding peeled away like old skin. A porch, mostly buried, led to a door with a rusted red lamp above it. The lamp was off. The door was not locked. That should have stopped me. It didn't. I opened it with my gloved hand and stepped into a dark entryway that smelled like mold, cold dust, and something metallic. I did not look at the windows. Inside, the old station was almost the same layout as the new cabin, but ruined. A collapsed desk. Broken radio shelves. A stovepipe bent at the ceiling. Frost on the walls. Snow had blown in through gaps and settled in strange smooth shapes on the floor. The windows were to my left. I looked right. There was a row of old equipment lockers against the back wall. Most stood open. One had a brass padlock on it, green with age. My hand shook badly enough that I dropped the key twice. The lock opened on the third try. Inside the locker was a metal clipboard, a cassette recorder, and a sealed plastic evidence bag. The bag contained a folded sheet of paper and a Polaroid. I took everything and put it in my go bag without looking closely. Then the radio clipped to my coat hissed. It had a battery now. I had put one in before leaving because going outside without radio contact felt stupid, even after everything. Helen's voice said, T9 Central. Do not return to the cabin. I almost answered. Then I remembered Rule 2. If the radio uses your full name, unplug the handset before it finishes speaking. Do not answer in any form. This was the portable, not the console. And she had not used my name. But Ray had said not to improvise. The radio said, Eli, do not return to the cabin. I turned it off. Helen's voice continued anyway. Elias Daniel Ward, do not. I ripped the battery out and dropped it. The voice stopped. Something moved behind me. Not footsteps. Not a creak. A breath. I stood facing the lockers. The windows were behind my left shoulder. The doorway was ahead and slightly right. To leave, I had to turn. I turned with my eyes fixed on the floor. There were footprints in the snow inside the station. Bare. They led from the door to where I stood. Mine led in beside them, booted and clumsy. The bare footprints were already there when I came in. I know they were. I would have seen them, except I had been looking at the lockers, the key, the windows I wasn't supposed to look through. The bare prints turned toward the windows. Mine did not. I stepped carefully around them. As I passed the old desk, the cassette recorder inside my bag clicked on by itself. A man's voice played, warped but understandable. My name is Martin Harlan. If you found this, don't trust the rules after they change. I stopped. The tape hissed. They don't change to protect you. They change when it knows what you'll do. A loud crack came from the ceiling. I kept moving. Harlan's voice continued from the bag. It watches for obedience first. Then guilt. Then routine. Once it can predict you, the rules are no longer rules. They're bait. I reached the door. Outside, the morning looked too bright. The recorder said, "Do not bring the paper back into the new cabin." I froze. The evidence bag in my go bag felt suddenly heavy. From behind me, my mother said, "Eli." Not through radio. Not through floorboards. In the room. I stepped out and pulled the door shut behind me. I did not run back. Running in deep snow is how people fall and die. I walked as fast as I could, keeping my eyes on the cabin and not on the windows of the old station. Halfway back I stopped. The new cabin's south window was uncovered. The towel was gone. A face stood behind the glass. Mine. It looked tired. It looked relieved. It raised one hand and pressed it against the window. I looked away so fast I nearly fell. Do not look directly. But I had seen enough. The thing in the cabin was wearing my red flannel. The one I had left on the back of the chair. Its hair was wet. Its face was pale. Its mouth moved behind the glass. I could not hear it. Then the station radio, the one inside the cabin, transmitted through the portable lying dead in my hand. My own voice said, "Central T9. All normal." A burst of static. Then Cooper answered, "Copy T9. Glad to hear it." I stood in the snow with the go bag on my shoulder and understood something simple. The station did not need me dead. It needed me accounted for. A report had been made. A voice had answered. All normal. I thought about walking away. The route markers were visible in the clear morning. The snowcat trail was faint but present. With luck I could follow it. With bad luck I would freeze in 2 miles. But standing there, looking at the cabin where something with my face had just checked in for me, I honestly considered it. Then the outside thermometer beside the cabin door changed. I was too far to read it with my eyes. But the station computer printed inside. I heard it through the radio somehow, a small chatter carried over static. Then my own voice read the printout. Outside temperature, 29. My age. Rule 5. If the outside thermometer displays your age, do not open an exterior door until it changes. The thing in the cabin opened the door. It stepped onto the porch wearing my red flannel and my wool socks, no boots. Its bare feet sank into the snow. It smiled at me. Not a wide smile. Not a monster smile. A tired, ordinary smile. The kind I give people when I want them to think I'm fine. Then it turned and went back inside, leaving the door open. I should have walked away then. Instead, I thought of the paper in my bag. Do not bring the paper back into the new cabin. Harlan had said that. I opened the bag in the snow and took out the evidence bag. My gloves were clumsy. The plastic cracked in the cold. Inside was the folded paper and the Polaroid. I looked at the photo first. It showed the rule sheet on the desk of the old station. Same yellow paper. Same 7 rules. But in the photo, there was an 8th rule written at the bottom. 8. If another you returns to post, do not correct the log. Behind the rule sheet in the Polaroid, reflected in the dark window, stood at least 6 people. All wearing the same face. Harlan's, I think. I unfolded the paper. It was a letter, handwritten in a shaking script. To whoever replaces me. If you are reading this, it has made a second operator. Maybe more than one. The second one will know the routine but not the cost. It can file reports. It can answer checks. It can keep the station alive. That is why they will not believe you at first. Do not try to prove which one you are. Do not say your full name to Central. Do not correct a false report after sunrise. Do not destroy the rule sheet. If you have to return to the cabin, enter without speaking and remove only what is yours. If you speak first, it will answer in your voice, and Central will count that as confirmation. If it asks you to finish the hourly report, leave. No matter what is missing, leave. M. Harlan. I read it twice. Then the radio clicked. My voice from the cabin said, Eli, you're going to miss the hour. The open door waited. I looked at the clock on my watch. 9:56. I had 4 minutes. That is how routine gets you. Even after all of it, the thought of missing a required storm report made my chest tighten. It was my job. My post. My reason for being there. The station had trained that into me until duty and fear felt like the same thing. I stood in the snow and told myself to leave. Then I thought of my mother's photo in the duffel. My brother's photo. My old sobriety coin tucked in the inside pocket. Small things. Stupid things. Mine. The thing inside called out. We need the pressure reading. I walked to the porch. The thermometer by the door read 29. The rule said do not open an exterior door until it changes. But the door was already open. That was the kind of gap the station liked. I stepped over the threshold without touching the door. Inside, the cabin smelled warm. Coffee had been made. My blue mug sat on the desk, full and steaming. The monitors were on. The red lamp was off. The log was open. The other me sat at the desk. Up close, it was worse because it was not a monster. It was me with small mistakes. Its hair parted wrong. Its left hand rested too still. It breathed a little late, like it had to remember. It looked at me and said, "You're cold." I did not answer. I moved to the cot and grabbed my duffel. It watched me. "You can't leave before the 10 o'clock report." I kept packing. It smiled sadly. "That's not like you." I put the photos in my coat pocket. The sobriety coin. A spare pair of gloves. My wallet. The clock ticked. 9:58. The other me turned to the instruments. "Pressure 28.51. It said. I went to the door. It said, "Visibility?" I stopped. The word hit me like a hook. Visibility was part of the report. It needed a value. Rule 1 said during an active storm, make the hourly report even if the instruments give impossible readings. Do not leave a blank space. The report sheet on the desk had every field filled except visibility. The other me held the pencil. Visibility? It asked again. I could see the number on the monitor from where I stood. 0.3 miles. All I had to do was say it. Not my name. Not my mother's name. Just weather data. A safe thing. A thing the rules had told me to say before. I opened my mouth. Then I remembered Harlan's letter. If it asks you to finish the hourly report, leave. No matter what is missing, leave. The other me looked at me with my own tired eyes. Eli, it said softly. Don't leave a blank. I stepped out. Behind me, the pencil scratched across paper. The voice said, Visibility 0.3. I did not know if it had finished the report, or if I had, by thinking the number. I shut the door from the outside. The thermometer still read 29. I walked away from the cabin. At the instrument field, I stopped and looked back. The other me stood in the doorway. It did not follow. It raised one hand again. Then it closed the door. I followed the route markers southwest, toward the service trail, because that was the only direction that made sense. The sky stayed clear for almost an hour. Then clouds moved in low over the ridge. Snow began as little hard grains, clicking against my hood. I walked until my legs burned. At some point, the portable radio turned on in my pack even without its battery. Helen's voice called for T9. Then Cooper. Then Ray. Then my mother. Then me. I did not answer. Near dusk, I found the Snowcat Trail. Or something like it. 2 shallow tracks hardened under fresh snow. I followed them because the alternative was choosing nothing. I spent that night in an emergency shelter box near Marker 17, half buried and stocked with old blankets, flares, and a can of peaches that had frozen solid. My hands were numb. My feet hurt in a way I knew was bad. I kept waking because I thought someone was knocking from under the snow. In the morning, Ray found me. At least I think it was Ray. He came in on a snowmobile with Helen behind him on another machine. Real Helen. Real Ray. I believed that then. I mostly believe it now. Ray took one look at me and said, Did you answer? I shook my head. Did you correct the log? I shook my head again. He closed his eyes. Helen wrapped me in a heated blanket and checked my fingers. She spoke gently but did not ask what happened. Not until we were moving. Not until T9 was far behind us and hidden by snow. At the office, they put me in a back room with a space heater and asked me to write a statement. I wrote most of it. Not all. When I got to the part about the other me, Helen took the pages, read them, and made a sound in her throat like she was swallowing bad news. Ray stood in the corner with his arms crossed. What happens now? I asked. Helen looked at Ray. Ray looked at the floor. We checked the station, she said. You'll see the log. Maybe. You'll see the report. Maybe. You'll see him. Nobody answered. They sent a team 2 days later when weather cleared. Officially, the cabin was empty. The door was locked. My duffel was gone, though I had brought it back with me. The log showed complete hourly reports through the night I left, and the next full day. The handwriting was mine. The radio records showed normal check-ins. The printer had no error history. Camera 3 had failed due to ice buildup. The old station was empty except for broken lockers and animal tracks. That is what the official report said. Unofficially, Ray came to see me at the motel before I left town. He looked worse than before. They found the yellow rule sheet on the desk, he said. In the cabin? He nodded. What did it say? He took a folded copy from his coat and gave it to me. There were still 7 rules. Most were the same. Rule 5 had changed. 5. If the outside thermometer displays your age, open the door for the operator returning from post. At the bottom, below Rule 7, someone had written a new line in my handwriting. Not Rule 8. Just a note. Eli did not finish the report. I stared at it for a long time. Ray said, "You're done out there." I laughed because he sounded like that was his decision. For 3 weeks, I stayed with my brother. I told him I had gotten frostbite and stress. That was close enough. I slept on his couch and tried not to react when the house creaked at night. His kids were loud and sweet and alive. My brother watched me with quiet concern but didn't push. Then the calls started. Not on the phone. Phones I could ignore. These came through weather alerts. The first one was on the radio in my brother's garage while I was helping him sort tools. The announcer was giving a normal forecast for the Fairbanks area. Then the voice flattened. Teslin Ridge observation. Visibility blank. I dropped a socket wrench. My brother looked up. "You good?" The radio went back to normal. The second was at a gas station. The little screen on the pump froze after I entered my card. Instead of asking for a zip code, it displayed hourly report incomplete. I canceled the transaction and drove away. The third happened last week. A letter came to my brother's house. No return address. Inside was a thermal printer strip. Order confirmed. 1 coffee black. 1 toast dry. Table 6. Server, Elias Ward. Below that in smaller print. Shift active. I burned it in the sink. The smoke smelled like diesel heat. I called Helen after that. The number was disconnected. I called the office. A new woman answered and said Helen had retired. Ray was not listed. Cooper had transferred. There was no seasonal opening at T9, she said, because T9 was now fully automated. No winter tech? I asked. Not since December, she said. System's been reporting fine on its own. I asked if anyone had been out there. She said, "Hold please." The line filled with music. Under the music, very faintly, I heard wind. Then my own voice said, "Central T9. All normal." I hung up. That was 3 days ago. This morning, I woke before sunrise because the room was too quiet. My brother's house is never quiet. There is always a furnace sound, a kid turning in bed, a truck passing on the road. But everything had gone still. I looked at my phone. 3:12 a.m. For a while I did not move. Then something knocked under the floor. Once. Twice. 3 times. I did not count after that. My brother's dog started whining downstairs. A minute later, my phone lit up with a weather alert. No service name. No app icon. Just a gray notification. T9 storm warning active. Manual report required. Visibility, ____________. I deleted it. It came back. I turned the phone off. In the black screen, I saw a dim reflection behind me. Not a person. A window. A small square of warm light, like the ones at the Old South Station. I am writing this now because I don't know what else to do with it. I don't expect you to believe me. I'm not sure belief matters. Maybe this is only a statement. Maybe it is a log. Maybe I am leaving a blank somewhere by telling it wrong. The snow has started outside. My brother's house is in town, with neighbors on both sides and streetlights and cars and a school bus stop at the corner. But the wind just stopped. And something in the hall is using my voice to ask for the weather.